Your 30s are the decade where life stops coming one problem at a time. Everything shows up together. One week, you're feeling good. Your paycheck finally looks decent. You're not panicking every time you open your bank app. Then suddenly, someone starts talking about buying a house. Your boss hints that retirement contributions really matter now. Your parents mention getting older like it's no big deal. And somehow, kids, college, and the future all land on your shoulders at once. That's when money starts feeling stretched. Not broke, not rich, just pulled in too many directions at the same time. I notice this everywhere. At work, people talk about promotions, but stress about benefits. Friends joke about being adults now, but quietly worry about money every single month. People look fine on the outside, but mentally, they're exhausted. And that's when the thought hits. Why does earning more money in your 30s still feel like you're behind? Because this decade is sneaky. Your 20s were about figuring things out. Nobody expected you to have answers. But your 30s? That's when the world assumes you already do. That you know how money works. That you're building the right things. That you're setting yourself up for the future. Except, no one ever shows you what actually matters. They show you what looks responsible, what sounds mature, what people clap for, but not the milestones that decide whether your life feels calm or constantly tight. By the way, my name is Mike. I'm not here to judge where you are. I'm not here to tell you what you should have done. I just pay attention. And what I've seen is this. Most people chase the loud milestones in their 30s and miss the quiet ones that actually change everything. So the real question isn't, am I doing enough? The real question is, which money milestones actually make your life easier, and which ones just make you look like you've got it together? Because once you see that difference, your 30s stop feeling overwhelming. But here's the part nobody explains clearly. Here's the weird part. Once you hit your 30s, you start hearing the same sentences everywhere. At work, at family dinners, even standing in line somewhere. Stuff like, man, I make way more than I used to, but I don't feel any richer. Or, I don't know where my money goes, it just disappears. You hear that enough times, and you realize it's not one person, it's everyone. You see it on payday. The deposit hits your account. For a second, it feels good. Then the apps start lighting up. Rent, car payment, insurance, phone bill, subscriptions you forgot you had. And suddenly that paycheck doesn't feel big anymore. It feels already gone. I've seen people sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, bank app on the phone, doing the same math over and over. Not because they're bad at money, but because they're trying to answer one simple question. How am I making more, but still feel tight? You notice it at the grocery store too. Someone puts things in the cart, then pauses, checks prices, does that quick mental math. Not broke behavior, careful behavior. That's the key. People in their 30s aren't broke, they're careful, because everything feels stacked. There's always something coming. Car needs tires, kid needs something for school. Health insurance email shows up and you already know it's bad news. And the scary part? Nothing here feels extreme. It's all normal stuff. That's what makes it dangerous. Because when everything feels normal, you don't question it. You just adapt. You tell yourself, this is just adulthood. But here's what keeps bothering me. If this is what doing fine looks like, why does it feel so fragile? Why does one surprise expense still throw the whole month off? That's the trap. Not disaster, not chaos, just constant pressure. And most people don't connect the dots yet. But once you do, you can't unsee it. And that's where things start to get uncomfortable. Most people land on the same explanation. They say, everything just got expensive. And look, they're not wrong. Groceries cost more, rent went crazy, insurance keeps creeping up. So the conclusion feels obvious. I just need to make more money. That's the comfortable answer. Get a raise, switch jobs, pick up a side hustle, problem solved. Except, that's not what actually happens. Because you've probably seen this already. Someone at work gets a raise. Everyone congratulates them. A few months later, they're still saying the same thing. Man, I thought this would help more. That's when it starts feeling confusing. Because logically, more money should mean more breathing room. But in real life, it usually doesn't. Here's why. Your money doesn't show up free. It shows up pre-assigned. Before you even see your paycheck, it already belongs to someone else. Rent knows it's coming. The car payment knows it's coming. Insurance knows it's coming. So when extra money hits your account, it doesn't create space. It just gets absorbed. I've seen this play out 100 times. Someone gets paid on Friday. They feel good for about 12 hours. Saturday morning, they're checking the bank app again. Same tight feeling. Same math. And that's when it hits. It's not that you don't make enough. It's that your money has no room to move. Think about it like this. If your monthly income is a table, most people in their 30s already have it packed. Rent takes half the space, car takes another chunk, bills fill the rest. So when a raise comes in, there's nowhere to put it. It just falls off the edge. That's the part nobody explains. We're told to focus on income, but no one talks about capacity, how much flexibility your month actually has. And once your month is full, more money doesn't change how life feels. It just makes the table heavier. That's the trap. Not low income, not laziness. Just a month that's already spoken for. And once you see that, the real problem becomes impossible to ignore. Because now the question changes. And that's where the system starts to show itself. Once you see that your month is already full, the next question is obvious. How did it get this way? Because nobody wakes up at 25 thinking, yeah, I'd love to design a life where my money is tight forever. It happens slowly, quietly, one reasonable decision at a time. That's how the system works. Think about how adulthood actually starts. First job, first apartment. You need a car to get to work, so you sign a lease. You sign a car loan. Nothing crazy, just normal. Then life moves forward. You upgrade apartments because the old one feels too small. You upgrade the car because repairs are annoying. You add insurance because now you have stuff. Each step makes sense on its own. That's the trick. No single decision feels reckless. But the system isn't built around single decisions. It's built around monthly commitments. Everything wants a slice of every paycheck. And once something gets a slice, it doesn't let go easily. Take the car, for example. You don't think of it as a monthly drain. You think of it as transportation. But every month, it quietly takes its cut. Payment, insurance, gas, maintenance. Same with housing. Rent isn't just rent. It's utilities, internet, repairs, fees that show up for no clear reason. Now stack a few of these together. Car, housing, insurance, phone, subscriptions, student loans that never seem to end. Suddenly, half your paycheck is gone before you've made a single choice. And here's the important part. The system rewards normal behavior. Pay on time? Good job. Sign up for autopay? Even better. Everything gets smoother, but also harder to question. Because once it's on autopilot, you stop seeing it until something breaks. Like when the fridge dies, or the car needs new tires, or the dentist says, yeah, this isn't covered. That's when the panic shows up. Not because the problem is huge, but because your month had no space for it. I've seen people handle big problems calmly when their month has room. And I've seen people lose sleep over a $600 surprise because their month was already maxed out. That's not intelligence. That's structure. And the system is very good at filling your structure. It pushes you toward monthly payments, toward convenience, toward low monthly cost thinking. Nobody asks, what does this do to my flexibility? They ask, can I afford this right now? Which sounds smart, until right now becomes every month for the next 5 years. That's where it gets dangerous. Because once your life is built on fixed payments, your options shrink. You can't say no easily. You can't pivot quickly. You can't breathe when something unexpected shows up. And none of this makes you irresponsible. It makes you normal, which is exactly what the system counts on. But here's where it starts to hurt. Because once your month is full, the consequences don't show up immediately. They show up quietly, in how your life feels. And that's what we need to talk about next. This is where it stops being theoretical. Because when your month is full, life starts feeling smaller. Not dramatic, just tighter. You notice it in small moments first, like when someone suggests a weekend trip. Nothing fancy, just a couple of days away. And your brain doesn't think, sounds fun. It thinks, let me check my account. That pause, that's the cost. Or you're at Costco, pushing the cart, doing that quiet math in your head. Not because you're broke, but because you know one wrong swipe means next week gets uncomfortable. That's when you realize something. Money problems in your 30s don't look like disasters. They look like hesitation. You hesitate to book things. You hesitate to commit. You hesitate to relax. Even good things feel heavy. A raise shows up, and instead of excitement, you feel relief. Not freedom, relief. Because now the month is survivable again, until it isn't. I've seen this play out with jobs too. Someone hates their job. Everyone can see it. But they stay. Not because they love it, because leaving feels risky. Health insurance, bills, mortgage, their month doesn't allow mistakes, so they tolerate things they shouldn't. That's the real consequence. Not stress once in a while, constant low-level pressure, the kind that follows you home. You feel it at night, lying in bed, scrolling, mind jumping ahead. What if the car breaks? What if hours get cut? What if something happens? Not panic, just enough worry to never fully shut off. That's what a full month does. And it spills into relationships too. Money arguments don't start with money, they start with tension. Who spent what? Why now? Couldn't this wait? Suddenly, small purchases feel personal, not because of the item, but because there's no room. And here's the part that messes with people. From the outside, your life looks fine. Good job, nice place, normal car. So when you feel this pressure, you assume it's just you. You don't talk about it. You joke instead. Adulting is hard. Money just disappears. But deep down, you feel stuck. Not trapped in debt necessarily, but trapped in your own structure. That's the trap. Not chaos, not failure. A life where everything technically works, but nothing feels easy. And once you're here, you stop thinking long-term. Retirement feels abstract. Investing feels risky. Planning feels exhausting. So you stay focused on the month. Just get through this one. Then the next. Then the next. That's how decades slip by. Not with bad decisions, but with no space to make good ones. And here's the quiet danger. The longer you live like this, the more normal it feels. Until one day, you realize you've been busy surviving during the years you were supposed to be building. That's the cost nobody writes down. And it doesn't show up on a bank statement, but it shows up everywhere else. And this is where psychology kicks in. Because once your identity gets tied to this structure, changing it gets even harder. There's something funny that happens in your 30s. You stop thinking of money as numbers and start thinking of it as who you are. You don't wake up one day and decide this. It just slowly happens. You start saying things like, "This is just adult life. This is normal at my age. This is what people like me do." And once that starts, your money choices change. Not in a big way, in small, quiet ways. Like the car. You don't buy a nicer car to show off. You buy it because, yeah, this makes sense now. Or the apartment. You could live cheaper, but you tell yourself, I'm past that phase. Same with eating out. Same with little upgrades. Same with monthly stuff. None of it feels wrong. That's the problem. It all feels reasonable. I've done this myself. I've caught myself thinking, I could save more, but honestly, this is just how life is now. Not angry, not stressed, just accepting it. And once you accept it, you stop questioning it. You stop asking, do I really need this? And start asking, is this normal? That's the shift. Your spending stops being about comfort or joy and starts being about identity. Being the kind of adult you think you're supposed to be. Here's the part people don't realize. Once something becomes part of your identity, changing it feels uncomfortable. Not financially uncomfortable, emotionally uncomfortable. Downgrading feels like failure. Saying no feels awkward. Cutting back feels like going backward. So people don't do it. They just carry it, month after month. That's why people stay stuck even when they know the math doesn't feel great. It's not because they don't understand money. It's because changing would mess with the story they're telling themselves about who they are. And this shows up in simple ways. You hesitate before quitting a job you hate. You hesitate before taking a risk. You hesitate before doing anything that might shake the structure. Because your whole life is built around that structure now. And the pressure becomes quiet. You're not panicking. You're not drowning. You're just tired. Tired of always thinking about money. Tired of always planning around bills. Tired of feeling like you should feel more secure than this. That thought pops up a lot in your 30s. I'm doing everything right, so why doesn't this feel easier? That's not you being dramatic. That's your brain noticing something important. Because the issue isn't effort. It isn't discipline. It's that your money choices slowly turned into identity choices. And once you see that, you realize something big. If identity helped lock this in, identity can also unlock it. Not overnight, not with extreme moves, just by questioning things again. And that's where everything finally comes together. So here's where everything comes together. This video was never about doing everything perfectly in your 30s, and it's definitely not about hitting some checklist by a certain age. It's about understanding why money feels the way it does right now. Most people spend this decade thinking something is wrong with them. They think they missed a step, or didn't start early enough, or made one bad decision they can't undo. But once you zoom out, you see something different. You see that most people didn't mess up. They just built a life that quietly eats their month. That's it. And once your month is full, everything else feels harder than it needs to be. Saving feels stressful. Investing feels risky. Planning feels overwhelming. So people stop looking ahead. They focus on getting through the next paycheck, then the next one, then the next. That's not laziness. That's survival mode. And survival mode is sneaky because it looks like responsibility. It looks like being an adult. It looks like doing fine until you realize you've been busy managing pressure instead of building peace. Here's the shift that actually matters. The real money milestones in your 30s aren't about looking successful. They're about creating space. Space in your month. Space in your head. Space to handle life without panic. That's why the milestones we talked about matter. Not because they sound impressive, but because they change how your days feel. When you have less consumer debt, your paycheck breathes. When your month isn't maxed out, surprises don't scare you. When your identity isn't tied to payments, choices open up again. And when you understand how the system works, you stop blaming yourself for reacting to it. That's the relief part. You realize you're not broken. You were just never shown how this actually plays out. And here's something important. You don't need to fix everything at once. That's not how real life works. You don't need to overhaul your entire financial life or make dramatic moves overnight. All you need is one crack in the pressure. One small win that gives your month a little room. Because once you feel that space, everything changes. You think clearer, you sleep better, you make decisions without that tight feeling in your chest. And that's when your 30s stop feeling like a constant test you're afraid of failing. They start feeling like a foundation. Not perfect, not stress-free, but solid. And that's the goal. Not to impress anyone, not to win adulthood, just to build a life that doesn't feel fragile. My name is Mike. I don't have all the answers. I'm just someone who pays attention to how money actually shows up in real life. And if this helped you see your own situation a little clearer, then it did its job. Because once you see the trap, you're no longer stuck in it. And that alone puts you ahead of most people. And if all of this felt familiar, there's probably one monthly decision in your life doing more damage than you realize. It's something almost everyone in their 30s has. Something parked right outside. Something we're taught to see as normal, even smart. But over time, it quietly eats flexibility, locks up your month, and keeps people stuck longer than they expect. That's what I break down in the next video. The silent wealth killer sitting in your driveway, and why most people don't notice the trap until years have already passed.